Hey folks, happy Saturday to you. We continue our pastor's devotional in this season of Lent, the first Saturday in Lent. I do hope that you're going to join us tomorrow in virtual worship, 9 a.m., sanctuary, 11 a.m., modern. And that's when we do it live stream. Anytime after that, it's recorded. It's on our YouTube channel. First United Methodist Church, Chula Vista. And tomorrow we're talking about being called as an unsuspected servant and looking at the story of Moses as we begin this Lenten journey together. But first, a devotional for today. The question is, how can I step outside my comfort zone to serve God? How can I step outside my comfort zone to serve God? Well, I tell you, the first story that came to mind for me was in the Bible was this story in Luke in which Jesus is calling some additional disciples. So go into Luke chapter 9, verse 57 is where we're going to be. And as you're doing that, you might know that Luke, the writer of Luke and the writer of Acts, is the same person. It seems from the inscription in the beginning of the in the beginning of the Acts of the Apostles, the book of the Acts. The writer is speaking to the benefactor, the person who paid him to write the Gospels. And this is oftentimes how things were written during those days. And so he was the person who was inspired by God, called by his community, and by some benefactor in his community, paid to be the writer of the Gospels. And he says, in the first book, I wrote to you about the story of Jesus. Now, in the second book, I'm going to write to you the story of the Acts of the Apostles. And so Luke Acts is really two books that go together. So you might read them sometime. Read the book of Luke, then read the book of Acts, and see how there's an arc that goes all the way through that story that the gospel writer is helping us to understand. So a little bonus information on Acts there. But Luke chapter 9, verse 57 is where we are. As they were going along the road, someone said to Jesus, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. To another he said, follow me. But he said, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. But Jesus said to him, let the dead bury their own dead, but as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Another said, I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home. Jesus said to him, no one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. Now, those sound pretty harsh, actually, from Jesus, if you just read those. So I want to be your disciple. Let my dad just die. Let me go bury my father. He says, no. I want to follow you. Let me just go say goodbye to my loved ones at home. And he says no. So sometimes when we're reading the text, reading the biblical text, we're trying to find out the original meaning of that text. What was he saying in that original meaning? Sometimes when we read the text, we're trying to figure out sort of the meaning for us. Is it different than that original meaning? Is there a sort of spiritualized meaning for that? Is there a devotional way in which we might understand that? And that's what I want you to think about in that way for this text today. Essentially, people who are coming to say, Jesus, I want to follow you, or yes, I'll follow you, but first let me do these things. And Jesus, in essence, is saying, you have to put down those things in order to follow me. And that's what made me think of this particular devotional question. How can I step outside my comfort zone to serve God? My question to you would be, what are you holding on to that prohibits you from following Jesus more closely? And not just you. What are we holding on to that prohibits us from following Jesus more closely? What do we need to put down so that we might be able to follow Jesus more closely? What are we still carrying with us? And sometimes that can literally be things, but sometimes that could be emotions, or that could be unresolved sort of angst or hurt. so if you're trying to answer a question, how can I step outside my comfort zone to serve God? One of the things would be, what are you carrying with you that provides that comfort that you might be able to put down? And therefore, putting down some of those comforts, some of those things of life, whether we like them or not, we still carry them, putting down some of those things of life so that we might be more able to follow Jesus, to serve God. It's a good question at the beginning of Lent. This is why in Lent we do prayer and fasting and self-denial. It's a practice in putting things down. I was just telling some folks the other day that the things that I gave up, I try to give up things during Lent as a practice of this self-denial, and I try to give up things that I might think about often. So then it's not just like, oh, I'll give up like, I don't know, some kind of food that I just eat occasionally. Well, if you just eat it occasionally, then you might think of it 3 times during Lent. But if you give up something that you would think of often, then many times during Lent, you're going to have this experience of self-denial, this experience of fasting, this experience of putting something down so that you can follow Christ better. That's what Lent is all about. This is a beautiful question as we begin this Lenten journey together. God bless you. Have a great day.